그러다 걸리면 죽어.
Though the average audience is rarely stunned with anything on television these days, there's a reason why Squid Game is still #1 in dozens of countries. The sheer shock factor had viewers glued to their seats from the moment it premiered on Netflix. With no shortage of stunning, jaw-dropping moments, Squid Game takes the crown. So which scenes had us gagging? Which scenes gave us the chills? And which made us sob uncontrollably? Let's find out. Oh, and for your information, I'll be dishing out some major spoilers from here on out, so get ready. Squid Game, the international phenomenon, follows a down-and-out gambling addict named Ji-hung who enters a mysterious survival game for a chance to win a ridiculous amount of money that would pay for a whole new life. There's only one catch: he has to make sure he stays alive to reap the benefits of the cash prize. How much money does he stand to win, you say? Well, let me introduce you to the first shocking moment.
당신 뭐하는 제발 나 좀 가만히 내버려둬! 생각 좀 하게!
The love of money does seem to be the root of all evil. When we meet Ji-hung, he's gambling away his mom's savings at a betting track. Not only is he millions of won in debt, but he has a loan shark that wants a kidney and an eye as a repayment. Yikes. So when he chooses to enter the Squid Game, we know why. After the first round of red light, green light, we all realize that this is no ordinary children's game. Hundreds of the 456 contestants fell at the hands of that creepy motion sensor doll, and things suddenly got real. So real that people started begging to go home. They were given an option. One of the 3 rules stated that if contestants wanted to end the game, a majority would have to vote for termination. But in true genius fashion, the organizers plant a seed within the players' minds. They show the money that has accumulated so far. When we see that golden illuminated piggy bank descend into the room, our eyes light up just as much as the contestants. Come on, be honest. This scene had you thinking about whether you'd join something like this. When the workers announced that there will be a cash prize of 45.6 billion won, which is equivalent to around $30 million, our jaws dropped. That kind of money changes social status. You become the 1%. It did the trick and left a lasting impact in the players' minds, but the scene after that was even more shocking. I wasn't alone when I thought that after seeing the big piggy bank full of cash, the majority would vote to stay in the game. But shockingly, things were split right down the middle. The scene was filled with so much tension, and seeing that number increase had everyone on the edge. I knew at that moment that the game would continue. This is why it was a shock when Player 1, also known as OL Nam, made the deciding vote to end the game. Though some begged to remain, viewers were stunned by the abrupt end of the game. This move only showed how good the writers were at twists and turns. They yanked that comfort that we had from under us. Usually in shows with this setting, once you're in, there is no getting out. They let the candidates free, but the seeds of money had already been planted. Once the contestants realized that life outside was just like living in hell, they all chose to voluntarily enter once again. The house always wins, after all. But the next scene topped the previous one with no competition.
내가 니들 같은 쓰레기만을 믿어가지! 그러면 어쩌라는 것! 네가 나가 살아봐. 그리고 넌
Now, we know that life isn't always fair. Some people have it easier and some take away opportunities from others. But when the contestants entered the game, they were sold the illusion of a fair process. Player 111 was just one of the many unfortunate souls who had a run on the game. He was a doctor who lost a malpractice suit on the outside, leaving him destitute, but his doctoring skills were a prime reason for his involvement in the next events. It was frustrating to see Player 111 lead away from the others to do some seriously disgusting organ harvesting. Turns out, he was in collusion with some of the red jumpsuit-wearing staff and was getting leakage about the games as a result. This went on for a while, and it was interesting that the writers chose to bring the unfair elements of the world into this game to show that no matter where humans are, there will always be an unfair advantage. George Orwell said it best: "Some are more equal than others." But what was more shocking than that was the way the whole bust went down. Our cop friend snuck his way onto the island and fully infiltrated the organ harvesting plot. This led to the higher-ups, including the frontman, figuring out that one of the players was getting fed information. As a punishment, let's just say, he hung the culprits up by their last string. But there was still more to come.
Hold my hand. In other words, darling.
This is arguably one of the most psychologically depressing games that had to be played by the contestants. While the tug-of-war was brutal and the honeycomb was sickening sweet, the marble arena and the game itself offered a strange and eerie presence. There was no brute force, just one mind against another, and it was sad to see people stoop to new levels of low. The rules were simple: choose any marble game to play and whoever wins the game between the two people gets to live. What made it worse was the pairings. Before the game, the contestants were told to pick a partner and they mistakenly picked their close friends. The two most saddening pairings were that of the old man player number 1 and Ji-hun. Coming in next was Sang-woo and Ali. Now this one really shook me. I was mistakenly hoping that they would both somehow get to go to the next round. But as Ali won fair and square, Sang-woo's mind started to spin. Up until now, we hadn't really seen Sang-woo's devious side. We hadn't watched him plot and plan anything. We just knew that he embezzled money on the outside. We also had seen him help Ali and his friends inside the game. So I know I wasn't the only one who was floored when they saw him replace Ali's marbles with rocks and sent him on a wild goose chase. My goodness, it was brutal. Sang-woo's antics only got worse after this moment, but this was a defining moment that snapped his character in half and pushed him to the dark side. But then again, what would you have done? While Sang-woo was deceiving Ali, Ji-hun was deceiving player 1. Oh, Il-nam had been suffering the symptoms of a brain tumor, so it wasn't hard for Ji-hun to trick him into thinking he was losing the marble game. For anyone watching the series for the first time, you feel so terrible for the old man who can't even remember how the game is going. Ji-hun gets all the marbles in the end, but only through the old man's sacrifice. It's gut-wrenching, but it's not the end of the story for player number 1. In this case, it's hard to choose a favorite player, but player 212, otherwise known as Minyo, is so much fun to watch. Her over-the-top attitude, her smart mouth, and her consistent scheming took her all the way to the semifinals. But it was her former lover, Deok-soo, who got what was coming to him. He and player 212 had been canoodling once she saw that he was a strong contender in the game. But when the tug-of-war game came around, he dumped her because she was a woman. He thought she would be a weak link in their all-male team. Remember that earlier on, she had stated that she would kill Deok-soo if he betrayed her, and well, he did. So in the 5th and final game, she hung on to him and threw herself off the glass tiles bridge, sending them both to a brain-splitting death. Hell really had no fury as a woman scorned.
It was the most physical and violent.
So any kind of violence is allowed?
Sure, there are no restrictions.
When Ji-hun walked into a police precinct to try to tell the cops about the weird survival game which he was released from, we didn't think things would get this far. In episode 2, the players were temporarily released after voting to end the game. Ji-hun tries to report the matter to the cops, who thinks he's a crazy drunk, except for one man, Hwang Jun-ho. The police detective, who hears Ji-hun's allegations, puts the pieces together and follows Ji-hun back into the island. Why? Because he has a hunch that his missing brother had also undergone the games. He only discovers later that his brother was in fact a winner of the games and that he wasn't forced into the situation. As the stakes get higher, we see Detective Jun-ho unravel the layers of the games to discover that they had been going on for a while. Of course, he is finally cornered by the frontman, a mysterious person who runs the games. It's not until the last moment that the frontman removes his mask to reveal that he is Detective Jun-ho's brother. Right after that, the frontman shoots Jun-ho and his body along with the evidence of the island goes into the ocean.
아저씨든 나든 둘 중 한 명이 살아서 여기 나가면
There's nothing as shocking as a major betrayal. Perhaps the biggest twist in the season comes 1 year after the events of the game. Ji-hun has been out and he hasn't touched his money. He's clearly sickened by how he won the game in the entire process. He's drifting through life until he gets a card telling him to come to a hospital. Who does he see when he gets there? None other than Oh Il-nam. I know, I didn't even have the words. Turns out the man was one of the creators of the game. He and his rich friends got so tired of the usual methods of entertainment and decided to construct this monstrosity. So why did he put himself in it? Because he wanted to have some carefree fun like the way he did when he was a child. Yep, no profound reasoning behind it. What's worse is that Ji-hun didn't even punch the guy or prosecute him. Oh Il-nam is on his deathbed by the time the truth is revealed. Now there are so many layers to the old man's involvement, but for now I'll let you relive the shock of finding out his true nature. With so many surprises in Squid Game Season 1, we can hardly figure out if Season 2 will give us some breathing room. Should the show have a second season? Would you watch it? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. See you in the next one.
뭘 하면은 좀 재미가 있을까?
재미?